Kiko's Freethinkers Forum. Explanations to Lesson 1, Pronunciation and Accentuation. As you can see in this first example, árabe, the accent is over the first syllable. So in this situation, you would never pronounce it árabe or árabe. It's always árabe because it's where the stress is, where the accent is. The same is in the third word here, está. I hear a lot of non-native speakers say está bien, but that's not right. It's está bien. Está, because that's where the accent is. You follow where the accent is. The Z sound in Spanish is pronounced like a C or an S. It's rarely pronounced like a Z, with the exception of some words that start with Z-O, for instance, like zoo. But other than that, the Z sound is pretty much an S, or a C sound as in actriz. Actriz. It's not actriz or manzana. We don't do that in Spanish. In slide 2 here, we have a B sound that at times can sound like a V, depending on where you are in Latin America. For all practical purposes, I pretty much use the B as a pronunciation and B in the English sound. But again, this is going to vary from speaker to speaker. I will explain later some of the idiosyncrasies when it comes to the pronunciations with non-native speakers and native speakers, and even within native speakers of the Spanish language. There's some sounds that aren't able to be produced as easily, and so people resort to their different techniques. But the way I pronounce this, bicicleta, I would just pronounce it bicicleta. I like to teach my students this ka-ko-ku, ga-go-gu when we get to the G-A, G-O, and G-U words. But in this case here, we have caro, which is the third word, caro. And then you have coche, C-A, ka, C-O, ko, coche, caro, ku, ka-ko-ku, cuba, cubo. But notice when it's C-E-C-I, se, certamen, cima. It's not kima, it's not certamen. It's se, si, certamen, cima, ka-ko-ku, ga-go-gu. The che digraph, CH used to be part of the alphabet in Spanish. Now it's not technically anymore, but it's still a very important digraph. So the CH is pronounced in English like the word chair, chido, chica, chicle, champú, macharse. So you see the CH digraph is still a very important feature in the Spanish language. The only thing I would say about this one is this first word, droga, is not drive like the word drive in English with the DR sound. It's droga. It's almost like you have to roll the R in a way. And these sounds you have to kind of pronounce after a while. You practice it more and more, you start to get the hang of it. But this will not be pronounced droga. That is a very anglicized way of saying it. It would simply be droga, 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 droga. You almost have to roll the sound, trill the sound, as opposed to saying this word like you would in English, like drive or draft. You wouldn't say it that way. You wouldn't pronounce it that way in Spanish. It'd be droga, droga, droga. The E sound is in Spanish. And just make sure you're placing the accents where they need to be and accentuate the word accordingly. So in this one, the third word here, éxito, not éxito or no éxito, it's éxito. That's the reason why the accent's in the first part of the word, to give you that clue. The same in the middle of the stress of estómago, estómago, not estómago, not estomago. It's estómago. The accent is telling you where the stress is when it comes to the pronunciation. Just accentuation for this one too. Ga-go-gu, ga-go-gu, ga, gasolina, go, gota, gusano, gemelos. So that GE and GI pronounces an H sound. Girasol, not girasol, not gemelos, gemelos, girasol, girasol, gemelos. We're not worried about meanings of the vocab right now. We're focusing on pronunciation and accentuation. H, the letter H is silent in Spanish. And that's the reason why you have, you go directly to the vowel, herman, hamburguesa, hoyo, hueco, hueso, 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 hueco, hoyo, hamburguesa, herman. The H is not pronounced. The I sound is like an E in Spanish. So you have, again, you have something going on here with higuera, hielo, higuera, hielo, the last two words. H isn't pronounced, but the I is an E sound. So it's like hielo, higuera. Informática, ciudad, ciudad. So you kind of have that dynamic with the I in Spanish. J is pronounced as H. So the H, the letter H itself is silent, but when the J sound, the J letter is used in Spanish, it becomes an H sound. So you have a lot of different dynamics going on with these rules of pronunciation. So this would not be jalapeño, not jugar, not juego. It would be jalapeño, jugar, jardín, juego, joyas. So you have that distinction there. We don't have a Q sound really in Spanish. We don't say, you hear a lot of people, Teddy Atlas, the boxing commentator, he likes to say Vasquez a lot, but we don't do the qua like that in Spanish. We do it with like the CUA words, like cuota, CUOTA. You would see that dynamic, but in this case here, when you have the letter Q, it's like a K sound. So quiero. And a lot of people will write informally, for instance, this word quiero, it would be Kiero as opposed to Quiero, because again, that's the sound that's producing. Químico. It's not químico, it's químico. Not coqueta, it's coqueta, coqueta. So you have that dynamic going on. I just want to stress laico, this last word here, this diphthong with the A and the I, the vowels combining there. So it wouldn't be laico, it would be laico, because that's the AI diphthong makes that laico, not laico, it's laico. Double L, I believe it was also a letter at one point. Now I think the Real Academia Española, they ruled that this was not a letter anymore technically, but it's so very important in the alphabet in the Spanish language. Double L is a Y sound, calle, llamo. So that's a common feature in Spanish language, the double L. Maybe the double L, if you're in a southern cone country like Argentina, the double L is going to sound more like a J sound. So millón as opposed to millón. You have a tilde over the N, which is this symbol that's over the N, and it's like a nasalized sound. It's not ninos, it's niños, niños. It's a nasalized sound. The tilde over the N. The tilde, again, is a common feature over the N in Spanish language. Llame, año, puño, caña, pequeña. Use the roof of your mouth to produce the R sound versus the trilled R that you're going to see next. So reto, rico, robaste, cero, raya. This part here is always hard for even native speakers of Spanish. So sometimes people can't pronounce the double R sound. They can't trill the R. Perro, as opposed to pero. Pero is a conjunction. Perro is a noun, the animal in this case, dog. Burro, tierra, arroz, jarra. A lot of people cannot trill the R. So A strategy that I know that some people use is they pronounce it as an H sound, which is very problematic. It works more for a word like ajos, tierra, but even then it's hard. It's just a word. It's a sound that you really have to practice over time. But in Portuguese, I know that the double R sound is like an H sound, but in Spanish, this is still a pretty hard sound to pronounce. It's also a distinguished feature between a non-native speaker and a native speaker. That's kind of where the liminal boundary is. It's hard for non-natives to produce this double R sound sometimes. But if you can roll the R, that's what you ideally want to do. You want to trill the R sound, hara. But that can be a task for some people. Sion words, anytime they end in CION with an accent mark, they're feminine words when we learn about gender later. This trabajar is not tra. We don't use the truck like that sound, the TR English sound. In Spanish, it's trabajar, trabajar, tra. That's that sound that's produced. Again, it may take some practice. This right here, Cuba, uva. Again, the V and the B, depending on where you are in Latin America, it may sound more like a V or a B, depending on where you are. I don't get too caught up in this particular pronunciation, though. I'm not a phonetics person per se, but technically that's what we're dealing with here is phonetics. But my goal is, as long as you're understandable to people, that's what you want. You want people to understand you. You're communicating in the language, and that's what I want for everybody. The same with the B and the V variation. You may, in a country like Argentina, for instance, vaya, it may be more like a literal V sound as opposed to a B sound in Mexico, for instance. But again, it's all kind of arbitrary at times. It can be the B and the V variation because those sounds are very similar in the Spanish language. Again, this Z sound is more like a C or an S. Pozo, pozo, not bozo, not buzón, buzón, buzón. It's more like a S. Beatriz, 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 Bea, Beatriz. And again, names, if you have, let's just say, for instance, you have a name, Beatrice. In English, that name wouldn't change in Spanish per se. You can keep your original name if you want to. You don't have to translate it to the target language. So if your name is Jerry or John, you can technically keep that same name, or you could technically say Juan. But proper names, a lot of times, you can just keep them the same in the original language. And I believe that's it. That's the end of the video. I hope that this was helpful. Please subscribe, like the channel. If you find this information useful, tell your friends and family. And remember, you can't unthink free thought.